Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the JT Jorphy podcast. Joining me today is Michael Day, and Michael and I met at a retreat, and we bonded over our shared love of all things health, wellness, and healing. So, Michael, thank you for being on the show.
It is an honor to be speaking to you, my brother from another mother, JT. Sending love to your wife as well, who I also met in California. And when I found out that you guys owned a business that focuses on health and wellness, I was super excited to one day have a conversation with you.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, it's I guess when we had first met, we were still in the starting up phase of this, and this podcast is kind of a manifestation of that goal of ours to try to put something out into the universe that we're really passionate about, just trying to maximize wellness and health and vitality and all those good things on our spiritual and personal, professional, and all those journeys coming together. So yeah, thank you for being here. Could you give us maybe a little bit of background on your journey so far? Maybe what got you into this path of healing, and maybe different aspects as to how we met out in it was Colorado. I think you said California, but we met
Sorry.
all good. But yeah, maybe tell us a little bit of background and your journey so far.
Well, my journey towards health and wellness began about 2 years ago when I took a trip to Peru with 13 other combat veterans. I'm a combat Marine, served one tour in Iraq. I was severely overweight. I was on I was on 16 VA medications, a bunch of different SSRIs that were adding to the weight. I had a horrific diet. The only constant was because I was a Marine, I kept up a consistent exercise regimen, but I was hurting myself because I was putting these horrible substances into my body. After coming back from Peru, I embarked on a 35,000-mile road trip, which allowed me to really test myself. I stayed in national parks, national forests, state forests, and the entire trip, when I wasn't visiting with friends and family, I was camping and hiking. And when I started out as a person that lived in Chicago for 7 years and then New York City for 13 years. I had not hiked since I was in the Marine Corps. When I was in Peru, I learned that I had placed a lot of limitations on my body, and that all I had to do on this trip was listen to my body. So in terms of diet, in terms of water intake, in terms of the endurance that I needed for the hikes, everything shifted as the trip progressed. So I started out not being able to hike 4 miles without being winded at elevation. I was eating a lot of food, thinking I need to have a ton of water. And as the trip progressed, I got to the point where I was hiking 21 miles on a bowl of oatmeal, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and maybe an apple and a banana. And maybe, I don't know, 2 liters of water for 21 miles. I would come back from that not lethargic. I would continue. I'd do this in the morning, and then I'd continue throughout my day and have a bunch of other experiences, not feeling tired. And I slowly realized that a lot of the information that I had received from Western medicine about what it takes for a body to operate at peak performance, I guess, if you want to call it that, wasn't right for me. And I don't want to dismiss Western medicine. I don't want to dismiss any modalities, any type of training. All is of utility. Everybody's body is different. And I think the biggest thing that I learned when I was out on the road is that there is no one prescription for all people when it comes to health and wellness, physical well-being. That if we really just listen to our body and what our body needs, it's going to be unique for all of us. And after the road trip ended, I just continued to explore everything that I just talked about. And I am at 44 years old in better shape than I was at 18 years old in the Marine Corps. I can run the 3 mile faster. I can hike harder and longer at higher elevations with a ton of gear and a ton of weight. And if I was where I was now in the Marine Corps, I would have been a MARSOC Marine, Special Forces, because
Mm.
and all it really came down to, I think, and I'm gonna wrap this up so we can actually have a conversation.
Okay.
I think what it came down to was the realization that a lot of exercise, a lot of health and wellness issues that people face are fear based, and it's
Mm.
based on what Western medicine tells them is right for their body. And
Right.
so people really get concerned. Am I drinking enough water? Am I stretching enough? Do I have the right caloric intake to maintain the stamina needed to do this hike?
Right.
Well, if you just kind of step back without fear and again listen to your body, you can do things that are unfathomable that you never thought your body was capable of.
Right. Yeah, this concept of intuitive, whether it be intuitive eating or kind of intuitive rest, something that kind of confused me when I first heard it. I was like, okay, I know what an intuition is. It's when you maybe have a feeling, like a gut feeling about something. But I think I was just so far disconnected from maybe what my body was even feeling in a moment that like I didn't really even know what that meant. Like, oh, just listen to your body to know what to eat. And it's like, I mean, I'm listening, but I'm not hearing anything. Did you did you find yourself in that like in the beginning of your journey where you didn't necessarily know how to like feel into your body to know what it needed? Was there a learning curve, and like maybe what did that involve?
There was absolutely a learning curve. And I think this would be across the board for all people that are interested in moving away from what people are prescribing to them and then actually and moving towards actually listening to themselves. So circling back to fear, when I was camping, I was mostly camping out in remote areas, on a Bureau of Land Management land, kind of 20 miles off grid by myself with no amenities or anything anywhere near me. So by doing that, I forced myself to overcome fear. I said, when I would pull up to a site, I'd look at a mountain or a hill and I'd say, I'm going there. I'm not shooting at azimuth. I'm just going. I don't care the elevation. I don't care the distance. I'm going to just do it.
Yeah.
And for the first 3 months, it was hell. It was extremely difficult. I was very tired. I didn't feel like I was getting enough food. I didn't feel like I was properly hydrated. Yet, throughout that 3 months, uh, which was during the summertime, and I was in the South, I never had heat stroke. I never suffered from dehydration. It was all fear. It was the limitations that we put upon ourselves,
Mm.
which is kind of funny because when you train in the Marine Corps, you're taught to push past all limitations. But the problem is there's this saying in the Marine Corps, pain is weakness leaving the body. And I truly believe that you do
Mm.
have to test yourself and challenge yourself. But because I was isolated, when my body started to hurt, I backed off a little bit. And I listened to it, and I would rest when I needed to, and then I'd continue going. And I got into that practice, which is a practice I continue today. Even though my endurance and strength and stamina is on point, I still
Mm.
take, if my body hurts, if I have a pain in my knee, if my chest feels tight, I'm having trouble breathing, I stop. I no longer
Right.
do the Marine Corps thing where you just push through it. And my body
Right.
responds. When I rest, I think the thing that is missing in physical fitness and health and wellness is rest, and maybe that's wrapped into this this idea that we got to go nonstop, 100%, 100 miles an hour all the time in order to be successful.
Right.
And it's counterintuitive to slow down, take your time, and just relax and allow things to build that way based on everything that we know that we're told, in high school, like in gym class, and then like later on.
Right. Yeah, I think there's something interesting there with like pain versus maybe just being tired, right? So I'm kind of learning myself too when I'm trying to exercise, and it's like, okay, there's a threshold where like it's discomfort and maybe there's some burn, there's some lactic acid building up and I'm uncomfortable, But then if you push it a little too far, it's like, okay, maybe there's strain and pain, which may result in injury. Like, I
Hmm.
think that's the line that, and especially if you're, got the adrenaline pumping and you're like very into it and like motivated and maybe in a mindset of like pushing really hard, it might be hard to be sensitive enough to notice where that line is crossed. But I think
Yes.
that line is, yeah, to me, like maybe that finding that line is kind of where the work is, and like finding your edge and your maximum to then know like, okay, I pushed it this far today. I can give myself the grace to pull back
Mm.
and rest a little bit. Um,
Well,
so
I'm
yeah.
I'm I'm all about being around other people, working out, hiking, things of that nature. But I think first you have to be on your own, because in
Mm,
addition to fear, anxiety kicks in. Like when you go to the gym, like, does that person think that I'm not lifting enough, or does that person think I'm not doing the exercise correctly? If I'm on a
mm,
hike, am I going too slowly for this person? When you're on your own, none of that matters. You're just doing your own thing. If you're
right.
in the garage lifting weights and doing your own thing, there's nobody to be anxious or fearful about. It's just you with yourself.
Yeah, you can totally let go of that. It's almost like the self judgment goes away when the other judgment is completely
Yeah,
removed. Makes
exactly.
it easier to let go of your own self
Exactly.
judgment. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I guess I hadn't really kind of identified that in my own self. It's like, yeah, because when I go to the gym or when I'm like working out in a group class, it's like I'm always constantly thinking, is that person looking at me, or how much are they doing? Are they judging me
Yeah.
for it? And then you maybe push yourself out of your comfort zone because of that.
It also could be something as simple as a distraction, like the type of music being played, or someone drops a
Mhm.
weight and you get distracted, and it takes you out of being here.
Right. And spending all that time in the national parks, did you feel like the connection to nature? I mean, I know myself, I don't get very much time to just be out in nature, in the woods, in a park, and really kind of settle into more of like the natural cycle of the day and night, the sunrise and sunset, more of the
Mm.
circadian rhythms. Did you feel like that, um, just living in that environment, like what kind of effect did that have on the process?
Well, I have indigenous roots, and this is part of the reason that I did not stay in cities and just crash at friends' houses and then go out on a hike once in a while. I did the opposite. It was hiking every day. I was in nature most of the time. And when I thought about wanting to get back into shape and to get to know my body better and to build stamina and strength, I thought about, again, and I'm not dismissing any modality, any type of training, but for me, with my indigenous roots, I looked back and I thought, okay, well, I looked at some photos of ancestors and they're in shape. So how'd they do that without a gym? What did they do? And so that was my goal when I went out there, was to connect with Pachamama, Mother Earth, and allow her and my ancestors to guide me. And they did. It was a really beautiful experience, because there were several times where I was around animal dens or fresh bear feces. I was in all kinds of inclement weather, and every time I faced a challenge like that, I thought, if my ancestors navigated this for millennia, then I can do this. And then it removed all fear, and that's what helped build my endurance and strength. So it wasn't me. I never look at anything that I do, whether it's the production company I'm starting or the film that I'm working on or exercise. I never look at it as an isolated thing where it's just me.
Mm,
I'm gaining knowledge and wisdom from the collective consciousness, through my spiritual practice. So it's like you have an army behind you, supporting you, pushing you up to that summit. It's no longer me overcoming my ego saying I can't do that. It is my family saying, Michael, you got this. Just keep going and rest again when you need to, when you're hurting. And there were several times where I was like on one knee, like I am not going to make it another 2 or 3 miles back to my car or up to the summit.
mm,
And I felt them inside. And I would say a prayer, and I would keep going. And by the time when I got to the summit, it was always like an epic sunset or a sunrise, or I would see an animal that would approach me without fear. It was all these beautiful moments. And so it was, again, circling back, just connecting again to who I am, who I really am, not, what my 43 years on the planet in society, modern society, told me I am and what I should be.
Right.
And I realize that this is a very difficult thing for most people because of professions and family to be able to get out and do something like this. So I feel really lucky that I had that flexibility.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When you mentioned the kind of spiritual connection to your ancestors, were there any particular practices or the kind of things that you would do to get you into maybe a more receptive state, or is it more kind of out of the blue you would have these feelings or thoughts come through? Was there anything like kind of regimented about a particular modality or practice that you would do?
That's a really great question, and it's like it's similar to how I answered the question before about when I started out the road trip. It was kind of like a slow drip. Like I was just building strength and endurance. When I started out the road trip from a spiritual perspective, it was those just kind of like those feelings, those moments. I'd kind of look up at the clouds and I'd feel like a warm hug from the clouds, and it would keep me going. But as I continued throughout the road trip, and especially when I was in Oklahoma, because I'm Cherokee, and Tahlequah, the capital, or I was in the Black Hills on Black Elk Peak, honoring and respecting the Lakota, I would pick up different practices and modalities from different people that I met, indigenous elders, different experiences I had out in nature where I was meditating and something came to me. So then the process, by the time I ended the road trip, looked like this, where I would pack, and this is unique and special for me. This is nothing that I've heard other people do, and everybody's routine and practice is going to be different, but I would have 3 apples, 3 oranges, 3 bananas. I'd have sweetgrass, mapacho, which is Amazonian black tobacco. I would have cedar, Palo Santo, and a collection of rocks that I had. And so I would set up kind of a ceremonial space with the blanket and the rocks, and I would give offerings to my ancestors. I would meditate, I would pray, and this would be either at the start of the hike or when I got to a summit or when I'm sitting by a river. And as I'm doing that, I'm unlocking more and more about myself. And I know this is going to sound a little out there, but I also believe in past lives. So in a past life, I was Mayan. I have several tattoos that are Mayan tattoos. This is a long story about how I arrived at this realization. But in my past life as a Mayan, I was a warrior. And when I would connect with the Mayans through this ceremonial practice, I could feel like my strength building. My Mayan, we have a bunch of different selves inside of us, I believe, from past lives and other experiences. And when I unlocked that, unlocked my Mayan side, I unlocked the warrior side. So I felt like in a matter of weeks, my strength just amplify, and all of a sudden I'm lifting more, or both of my shoulders were shot when I started the trip, and now I'm waking up doing 30 push-ups every morning, and I can just feel this strength that feels outside of me. That's the only way I could describe it, and it's such a beautiful feeling.
Interesting. So you're mentioning like meditation. I know myself, I have trouble with like a seated meditation and trying to still the mind and still the body. I guess my monkey mind kind of spins around a little bit crazy. Is that when you say the word meditate, is that kind of what you're referring to, more of like a seated and still and silent practice, or do you have a different, maybe like a walking meditation or a breathing meditation? What typically do you gravitate to?
Oh man, when I got back from Peru, I started out with this guy Joe Dispenza that my mentor Karen had recommended. So I did this one meditation for wealth and abundance and gratitude every morning for 30 days. And it took all the way up until the 30th day before I started connecting with things outside of me. And after that, it just amplified. And I started, now it's to the point where I'll just go to YouTube and in my feed will be the exact meditation that I need for that day. And meditation takes all kinds of different forms. Sitting in lotus pose right now, like as we're speaking, but you don't need to meditate like that. Spending time with your children, playing guitar, cooking a meal, going on a hike, you can get to a meditative place like that. I think there's a misconception because people view meditation as something that originated in the East, and that there's a specific way that you have to do that. And I will say, from my experience, there is no wrong way. There is no right way. Whatever way is perfect for you is perfect for you, and nobody else can tell you that you're doing that wrong.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like the intuitive eating that we were talking about before.
Exactly.
Everybody's going to have their own maybe requirements or preferences, and comparing yourself to others may just lead you down a road that's not best suited for your own self on that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for that. You had mentioned a production company. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and what your goals and vision is for what you're doing?
Sure. And it's in alignment with health and wellness. When I was in Peru, I've been to the Amazon and the Sacred Valley, and I actually went to the Sacred Valley and unlocked things in plant medicine ceremonies about the film. But when I got back from the Amazon the first time, I had written a memoir. And when I continued on my road trip and I had another plant medicine experience with the sacred medicine called Bufo, I was told that the memoir needed to be created needed to be turned into the film. And the whole purpose of this is for other people to initiate their healing journeys. My ego is removed from it. I don't care about generating revenue. The whole point of this is to be a vessel for what I call the Great Spirit, to allow the Great Spirit to craft this film in a way that people will be receptive to it. It's been a long road. That was 2 years ago. And I've had a script with my buddy in Austin that I went to Columbia University with. And I knew he was the one to write it because he's brilliant. I sat in lectures with him. He's a fantastic writer. He's finishing the script February 1st. I actually just got off a phone call with him earlier, and he is over the top excited about it. Everything is coming together. And within the last week, I've made connections with a couple of people in Miami and New Mexico. And I've told them about Pachamama Productions, my production company. I have the business plan, ran the numbers to figure out what it would take capital-wise to get the company up and running. And the goal of it is to disrupt Hollywood. We want to make content from the heart, and we want to generate revenue with a model where we can say, we were successful doing this in a way that is unorthodox and it is not like Hollywood. And if you want to make good films, you don't have to follow their model. Come hang out with us. Let's make some good content. When I say good content, I mean, there's no unnecessary violence or sex that doesn't advance the character arcs or the narrative. Everything is important. Dialogue becomes critical instead of just throwaway stuff, which you see all the time in films. Man, I could talk about this for a long period of time, but I'll just wrap it up saying that the production company should be up and running by the end of February. Again, the script will be done February 1st, so we anticipate hopefully starting principal on or no later than May. So having this production company and this film up and running before the end of the year.
Excellent. Yeah, good luck with that. It sounds
Thank you.
like it's an exciting launching point that we're catching you at on this episode now.
Yeah, well, you saw, man. I'm like stumbling around trying to explain it because there's so many things I could talk about in the context of film. But ultimately, it does link back to health and wellness, providing, a good, wholesome product that people can resonate with, and maybe they start their own journey and they discover who their ancestors are and they test themselves in Pachamama, and now they're climbing summits going 21 miles on a peanut butter sandwich and some oatmeal.
Yeah, just inspire. I like how you said to help initiate the healing journey of others. And as you were saying, like how your production company wants to put out content that's a little bit more maybe inspiring and uplifting like that, it got me thinking of this concept of just conscious consumption. And like media is just like our food, is just like anything else that we surround ourselves with. It's going to impact our personalities, our psyche, like, and having intention with what you watch and really making sure that it's something that's going to benefit and like build you up. I feel like there is a lot of content for the sake of content out there right now, especially with like the COVID-19 lockdowns, and they were just trying to pump out as many different shows as possible, some better than others. I guess maybe it's something we can dive a little bit into on the theoretical side, but how do you view that as far as with intention going and viewing like media or television? Do you have any practices yourself, like with things that you try to avoid, or maybe boundaries you put up? I know a lot of things that I've kind of struggled with binge watching in the past, of like just going like hours and hours and being like, whoa, like where did the day go? Like how do you kind of, maybe in your own personal day to day or over time when you're watching things, like how do you think about that?
Well, I will say that because I was on the road and in remote places, I very rarely had access to a signal where I could consume content. And I didn't want to invest time in downloading content. So I used to binge watch a lot of things. Now that's impossible for me. Unless it was just this earth-shatteringly awesome show, I just ain't nobody got time for that. I got stuff to do. But it's not to knock people that do that. But I will say that like alcohol and hard drugs, fatty foods, I feel like media is an illusion for a lot of people. It's a distraction from them getting to know who they really are. This is, of course, not across the board. For me, in terms of how I evaluate the content that I'm watching, there's been multiple times where I visited friends and I've sat down in front of a TV and I said, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this, so I'll get out and I'll go on a hike or do something else. And usually that is anything that reinforces the illusions that we're dealing with. And the first thing that comes to mind was the show on Netflix that I used to watch with my wife. And it was a show where there would be people in a pod and they couldn't see each other, and then they would propose to each other. They'd like go through a bunch of different people and then propose to the one that they thought they would marry. And I tried watching that when I came back, and I was like, this is, for me, no judgment on people that watch it, but for me, it's kind of like the crux of everything that's wrong with media. And that's this, there's very few, I know I just talked about reality television, but I think it applies to narratives as well. There's very few things that encourage people to move beyond the illusions that they live with. And when I say illusions, that is, this idea, you got to make as much money as you can, as fast as you can. Sex is not sacred. Hook up with as many people as you can. Like the shows that make my skin crawl are the shows, mostly reality TV shows, where people are disrespectful to women. And I'll be candid about this. I was not the best person. I did not treat women respectfully. I wasn't the person that would cheat on partners or stuff, although that was a thing a couple times. It was more about not recognizing the divinity and the sacredness of all women, which I believe, or which I call givers of life. They have the potential to bring a soul onto this earth. And for me, that demands total respect, regardless of how, regardless of the interaction with the woman, regardless of the dynamic. It's just, for me, it's automatic respect. And if there is disrespect that is returned to me, then I just accept that. And I say, okay, that's that person. I control how I react to it. But yeah, I think that's my big hang up, is how horrifically women are treated in film and television, and it reinforces all this machismo and these awful male toxic stereotypes, and I just can't watch content like that. It hurts my soul.
Yeah, doesn't
And then
resonate with who
the
you
other
are.
piece is over the top violence, unnecessary violence. I can't rock with that because I went to war and I know what real violence looks like. And I saw it on the
Mm.
west side of Chicago when I lived there in East Harlem. And I don't think it's helpful to glorify it and portray it. And I know I'm passing a lot of judgment on a lot of content and a lot of people that watch this content. Um, and I will circle back and wrap this up by just saying that um, there is utility in all things, good or bad, whether it's helpful to the evolution of the soul or it's detrimental. It's either a positive moment or it's a lesson for growth. So it's all beauty, one way
Right.
or another.
Yeah, yeah. Just to maybe touch that a little bit as far as your military background and kind of these cultural, um, expectations or just stereotypes or things that media has put forward on, the need to be machismo, the way that you treat women, the glorification of violence. Do you see that as kind of like an opportunity? I know there's so many veterans that are struggling, and maybe even to initiate their healing journey, where to turn. Do you have any maybe advice or suggestions on someone that doesn't necessarily know where to start, that has a similar background to yourself, like how they could get started?
This is where it gets a little tricky. I have a lot of friends that are combat veterans that are dealing with the same things that I was dealing with pre-Peru. Personally, I believe that sacred medicine is an opportunity. It gives you a blueprint on how to resolve the issues that you just talked about. And then you come out of the ceremony, out of the sacred medicine, and then you're challenged back here in reality, outside of the retreat space. And it's in those challenges where you grow and you move past trauma, um, negative thoughts about people, judgment, all of that stuff. But the only way that you get to sacred medicine, from my perspective, is if you're called to it. I can't tell somebody, hey man, you can solve all your problems. You don't have to be homeless and alcoholic and addicted to drugs and have a gun in your mouth about to commit suicide. Like, I know there's a way around that, but and I say this because I'm really reluctant to try and give advice to people, because every single person on earth, every single human being, their journey is unique to them.
Hmm.
And I don't know what is going on in their heart, what is going on in their mind. So I would just, the only advice I could give is just sit in stillness and listen to yourself. And everything that you need inside of you to move past all the horrific things that come along with being a combat veteran, PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, alcoholism, substance abuse, battering your wife, disrespecting your kids, like all of that. The answers are within. And I distance myself from the VA for that reason, because too often in society, veterans are told this is how you heal. This is how you get out of the funk that you're in. And it's SSRIs and, cognitive behavioral therapy, but that stuff really only works for a small percentage of people. SSRIs are only effective for, I think, the last study I read was like 72% of people that take them. Well, what about the other 28%? I guess those are the veterans that take their own lives, probably, right? I would say do what you need to do if you're in crisis mode. Go to the VA, get the help that you need. But my advice to a veteran that is struggling is you are not going to find the solutions to the problems, the internal problems that you have, externally through an institution, through a leader, through any of that. It's all going to come from here. And that's the leap of faith. Like, it's scary to do the internal work. Introspection is difficult because you're forced to face like all the horrific, I use that word already multiple times, all the horrible things that happen to you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah. I
leave it
think
at that.
that. No, I appreciate you saying that, and kind of circling back again that theme that it's very case by case and individual, and you can't really mass prescribe anything. More just kind of trusting into your own intuition, feeling into your own body to discover the answers that lie within there to provide and maybe make some decisions or change up some behaviors to better support your own self moving forward,
Yeah.
rather than taking information from external sources. Yeah, no, thank you for that. We're getting close to time here, but wanted to give you some opportunity. Any final comments or last topics that you wanted to bring up and leave with our audience?
We talked about so much. I'm trying to run through my mind and remember the important things that we highlighted. But I think just in general, it's going to be what we just talked about. Forget the external. Nothing is going to solve your problems. Not getting a new job, not getting a new car, not getting into a new relationship until you do the internal reflection, do the internal work, move past your trauma. All these famous people, when they're asked, how did you become famous? Well, and obviously the goal for everybody is not to become famous, but I'm just, the people that are, I'm not talking about media. I'm saying like the best pianist in the world, the Rhodes Scholar, like how did they get to that point? They all say, I've discovered who I really am. I didn't allow anything outside of me to influence the direction that I wanted my life to go in. And I think that that's really powerful, that these people are telling us, and the vast majority of humans are looking at it and they're listening to it and they're not doing the internal work. And I think that's an illustration of how entrenched and intense the resistance to doing work on yourself is. Forget the external, just dive deep inside. It's beautiful. And when you come out on the other side after you work through the trauma, it is going to show you a world that you never thought even existed inside of you and externally.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, sharing your perspectives, your experiences. I think sharing our stories can give some insights and maybe just some ideas to other folks out there to help inspire them to take that first step. I think that, even myself, that first step of trying to admit to myself, okay, there's some work to be done here. There's some things I need to dig up. There's some shadow self of mine that could be addressed, could be healed. I think that first step of admitting it to yourself was the hardest one for me. So thanks again, Michael, for coming on and sharing that with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. My heart is full of so much gratitude that you are creating this platform to have these type of conversations, because they're critical. They're critical, man. They're critical.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
Take care.
All right, cool. So I'll stop.